everybody. Welcome to Live Lessons. We are coming at you not quite so live tonight, but we're coming at you live from legendary Groon Guitars here in Nashville, Tennessee. We had a few technical problems, so we're taping it now. We're going to air it here in a day or so. But it's going to be a great time. We're so excited to have with us the great Shane Hennessy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Steve. Thank you. Thank you.
Shane is here in the States. You're from Dublin, right?
I'm from just outside of Dublin. It's about an hour away, a town called Carlow.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long have you been here in the States on this trip?
This time, so I got in last Wednesday, which was about a week ago, and I'm here for about another 2 days. So it's been pretty hectic since I got here. You know, I don't like to book days off or holidays. You know, I just like work the whole way through.
Yeah.
So but it's been a lot of fun. I've been playing a couple of shows around Nashville. I was also up in Pennsylvania, in Bethlehem. Playing up there at Steel Stacks with good friends of mine, band Scythian. So it's been pretty flat out since I got here. A lot of songwriting, a lot of connecting, a lot of playing, but that's how I like it. I like to be busy.
Oh, well, I have been an admirer of yours for a long time.
Thank you.
And I know I know you're not from here, so you don't get over here. I mean, you probably get maybe once or twice a year you come over?
About twice a year. Yeah. Okay. Last year I was over for Music City Irish Fest. I was over for the Chet convention. But later on this year, I'm going to be here, and a lot more than I thought I would be. There's a lot of bookings after rolling in, so I'm going to be here again in July, all of August, all of September, touring all over the country. Yeah, a lot of different music festivals.
Coming back through Nashville?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, going to be back in July and hopefully again in September.
Let me know. Maybe we'll have our stream worked out by then, and we'll have you. We would love to have you back. Please let me know.
Absolutely.
Can you open us up with a song? What are you going to play for us?
Absolutely. Yes. So I'm going to play a tune that I composed. It's the title track from my album, and it's dedicated to one of the most amazing cities and one of the most amazing cultures in the world. This is Marrakesh.
Wonderful.
All right.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely gorgeous. Wow, you get just such amazing sounds out of your instrument. Tell us what you're playing through here today.
So I'm playing a Mayton guitar from Australia, and it's one of their custom shop models built by Andy Allen. I think he's the head of their custom shop. Spruce top, Indian rosewood back and sides, but is just a phenomenal stage guitar. You know, there are plenty of really nice acoustic guitars out there, a lot of great builders, but very few people get the pickup right, and these guys have hit the nail on the head totally.
Everyone I've heard sounds amazing.
Well, that's it. You plug those guitars in, and there's not a bad one.
Yeah,
they're all good.
Yeah. Tell us, and then tell us what you're running through here.
So I've got my pedal board down here. Boss tuner is pretty standard. The AER Pocket Tools colorizer. It's a mid-range fattener. It's
just
an
kind
amazing,
of an EQ.
It's an EQ. It's very a kind of a fine-tuned EQ. So it's got a couple of unusual controls. One of the knobs increases the bass and the treble at the same time. Then you've got a kind of a parametric EQ on the bottom for the mid-range, and then on the top you've just got your gain, your DI volume, stuff like that.
Now it's not doing anything that's actually controlling the amp.
No, not at all. No,
okay,
it's separate
so it's just kind of like an effect.
It's a little bit like the AER amp in a box, but it's a lot more fine-tuned than that. So it gives me a lot of control on the stage. A lot of times I play festivals and it's a plug-in and play kind of scenario. So everything I have here contributes to making it as easy for me and for the sound man as possible.
Yeah.
So then after that, I've got my Boss Super Octave, which is in a lot of cases my little secret weapon. And so the Super Octave is great because you can get the octave effect, but there's also a little frequency selector, a little cutoff point. So I have it tuned usually to somewhere about kind of C to C sharp around here, so all of my bass notes to come out when I hit it have that big fat bass. But when I play a chord, there's no octave. So then I put them together and you get this big fat lovely warm sound.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you illustrate that just with a few measures of a song or something?
Absolutely,
like that?
yeah. So I use this in my arrangement of Let's Dance by David Bowie. So I'll give you a measure of what it sounds like without the octave, and then I'll bring it in. So when I'm playing normally, it goes. That's beautiful. That's what fills up that big bottom end. So
boy, that is the key. So that's the Super Octave Boss OC3.
The OC3, and the trick is to use it sparingly. You know, if you use it a lot, it loses its effect. But if you can kick it in just every now and again, it kind of grabs people by surprise.
Yeah.
It's a nice change for, you know, someone like me playing solo acoustic guitar. You tend to stick a lot of the time to the same frequency range. So if you can give your audience's ears a break and give them new information, it's kind of like, oh my God, where did that come from?
And if you have a great sound system, I imagine you could get quite a thump out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best thing about it is I don't have it hooked up this way today, but you can take two lines out, and one is just the bass frequencies and the other is your guitar frequency as normal.
Good.
Which is great. So that's why I've got that on the board. I've also got an Electro Harmonics freeze pedal. They call it the freeze sound retainer. It's like a sustain. So I use this, I've only started using it recently. I got it a couple of weeks ago, but what this does is you can hold a chord, or in my case I hold a harmonic. So I'll take something like this. I hit the button. It's still going. And so then I can use that then if I want to solo over that chord.
And it will just go indefinitely, or will eventually fade, or you can control that?
That'll keep going until I turn it off. So it's a great, a lot of people use it when they get into playing modes and scales for the first time.
Yeah.
So for example, they'll want to get a certain, you know, they'll go for like the Lydian sound or something like that. So they'll play a Lydian chord and they'll try and get the feeling for, you know, and then they're going to work out how to play, you know. And that's what helps helps a lot of people get that kind of scales and modes idea into their head for the first time, because when you just play them normally, they don't make that much sense. But if you can refer it back to something, that's when you can start kind of making headway with it. So I recommend people to get them if they want to get better at that kind of stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and so then moving on, we've got the TC Electronic Flashback. I think it's the Flashback 2. That's my delay. So what you just heard in Marrakesh, very simple. But a sort of an interesting way that I've used the delay recently, I'll show you really quickly, is that I've got a new piece called Riverdance. And it's a little bit crazy, but the idea comes from West African music, where you've got multiple rhythms going on at the same time. So rather than using the delay as just an effect, it's actually nearly like my second instrument. So what I do is, the first time that it comes in, just a little bit. The first time that I play it, a rain dance, it sounds like this. So it's on the beat. The second time it comes around, I have a little riff that links them, which goes. Now it's a separate rhythm. So now it's going bam, 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 bam. So it's nearly like a 3/4 or 2/3. And then combine that with the bass octave. And that's what's giving me the effect. So it's using my delay as a polyrhythm. And so that's where that comes in. So that's about the extent of what I do with the delay. Then we've got a Boss loop station, and I don't ever use loops. The reason I have it there is because it's got the backing track to Riverdance pre-programmed into it. So when I play Riverdance live on the stage, I've got the end of that song already in the box. So when I come into the last, the build-up, I hit that, and that takes care of the backing, and I go off on one on the melody.
Good.
And then finally, TC Electronic Hall of Fame 2 reverb, and it's compact, does what it's supposed to do, nice and resilient. So I'm not into gear at all. I'm not into, you know, pedals and picks and cables and that kind of thing. It's a very practical, functional pedal board, and it does everything I need it to do.
And small enough to be traveling. Where you can travel with it without too many problems.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, what else do you have? Is that a stomp?
Yeah, I've got a little stomp box here as well, and that's a little porch board from Wisconsin, and that's just like my traveling bass drum. So that just gives me a solid sort of bass drum effect. Now, it doesn't sound as full as it usually does here through a little acoustic amp, but when you put that into a PA, it sounds like you've got a drummer kicking you in the chest. So again, I use that sparingly. Many of the Irish sets that I do, sometimes I might use the freeze pedal, hold the drone, and then bring in the right. So we're not getting the full effect here, but through a big PA system, that comes roaring out. Wonderful.
How'd you get started playing? Did you come from a musical family?
I did, yeah. My grandfather had a big band years ago, played music by, you know, Glenn Miller and Tommy Dorsey and people like that. My dad is a musician too. He had bass and guitar player, so there was always a lot of music in the family. Many of my uncles and aunts are musicians. But the way I got started on the guitar, or rather I should say how I got started in music, was I was a concertina player. So in Ireland we've got such a strong Irish traditional music culture, and everybody in school in Ireland learns how to play an instrument. So everyone starts off on the tin whistle, and then you pick whatever instrument you want to play. So in my case, because, well, I tried the violin and I was terrible. The fiddle, as we call it. And yeah, I was brutal. And so I switched over to the concertina, and I took to that a little bit easier. The concertina is like it's a bit like an accordion, but it's a hexagon shape on both sides. Play it on your knee like that. And I played that from the time I was 4 up until I was about 12 or 13 years old. And around that time, I heard a film where Fire and Rain by James Taylor was in this scene in the film. And I remember saying to my dad, I want to learn how to play that. I like how that sounds. So Dad said, oh no, that's James Taylor. That stuff is insanely complicated. You know, I can't show you how to do that. I can show you some chords, but I can't show you this finger picking stuff. So I decided to get James Taylor's greatest hits and put it into the CD player. And I used to sit down with the guitar and try and figure out, you know, where the notes were, because my ear was already so attuned to single notes because of Irish music that I could pick out each note that James Taylor played. So instead of the way most people would probably learn it now, you know, they put the capo on and they think, okay, well, I'm in the key of C, but I'm thinking in A. So most people would go like that. They think, okay, G up to A. Whereas I was thinking, okay, so the notes he's playing then in, you know, with the capo up, like that, you know, start on B, C sharp, A, E, C sharp, B, G, D, B, like that. And that's how I learned how to do that. It was my background and my training in Irish music was so strong that I approached finger picking and playing multiple lines on the guitar a little bit differently, I think, than most people usually do it. It wasn't a chord-based thing, it was a melody and a line-based thing. So that's how I picked it up. And I got infected by the guitar bug then, so James Taylor was all I listened to. And so as I found more guitarists and more music and things I was interested in, eventually a cousin of mine said to me, oh, have you ever seen Tommy Emmanuel? Have you ever seen Andy McKee? Have you seen Preston Reed? Have you seen a huge list of guys? And one by one I made my way through the list and I just fell in love with that style of playing, you know? And that's really how it happened. Ever since then I've been trying to listen to as much music as possible, and what really gets me going is when I can take music from other cultures and music that's traditionally on other instruments and try to apply it to the guitar to see if I can learn something from it. So for example, playing Marrakesh at the start, you know, that's taken primarily from a kind of a Moroccan influence. So, you know, they've got influences there from the Arabic culture, from the French culture. So what I did to start that tune was I wanted to try and imitate their call to prayer. So the call to prayer, you know how it goes. And so I picked up my guitar one day and I thought, okay, how can I find this same sound that they get? That kind of thing. So like that. And then I thought, okay, well, you know, we could have some really lush chords, because a lot of that music, even though it's so rhythmic and so melodic, the chords don't really feature all that much. It's a bit like Irish traditional music, you know, there's no harmony in Irish music, according to the purists. So what I decided was, well, okay, I could pair this melodic idea with some really lush chords. And so I found these particular voicings of chords, like for example, an F minor played this way.
And you're in standard tuning?
Standard tuning, I rarely go outside standard tuning. A bit of drop D, occasionally a little bit of dadgad, or if I'm backing Irish music, I'll play in D, A, D, A, D, E. So that's I would think of it as tenor banjo tuning with a high drone and a low drone. So it allows you to play melodies the same way you do on the 4-string banjo, and then you can back it as well. But rarely go outside of standard tuning. And so, and the other problem I have is that I don't know the names of any of the chords that I play. My music theory is very limited. I can't read music. Everything with me was always by ear. And so people often, for example, that F minor chord that I just played, I know there's a correct name for it, but I don't know what that is. I just wanted to hear that kind of clashing sort of sound with the F minor, and it gives it this beautiful kind of tension to then resolve into, oh, we're back home.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow. Did you have a guitar teacher that showed you along the way, or was just primarily by ear? Just me and my ear, and what told me what was right and what was wrong. You know, my dad has got a very good ear. He's a great musician, and I reckon actually if when he was younger he was exposed to the same things I was, I reckon he would be doing this now instead of me. But he's got a really sharp ear for music, and every now and again he would kind of give me a pointer here and there and say, oh, maybe try this instead, or had you thought about doing it this way? And so he was the only kind of teacher I've ever had. He showed me the basic chords at the start, you know, G, C, and D, and all the regular ones. And then from there, it was just my own interest. You know, it was like a burning passion. So every time that I would come home from school, or, you know, if my summers off when I was younger, it would be just get up, play guitar, listen to music, eat dinner, play guitar again, go to sleep, rinse and repeat. You know? Now, I've seen so many videos of yours. A lot of them are covers of tunes. Tell us how you approach taking a song and creating a cover song, a familiar song, and creating an arrangement out of that? Do you just kind of get an idea of what you want to do?
Absolutely, yeah. For me, I think the best advice I heard about arranging was Tommy Emmanuel said one time that you should always look for songs where the chords move a lot. And it makes sense on the guitar. If you take a regular 4-chord song and try to arrange it, on the guitar you're quite limited as to what you can do. But if you take a song, like, and that's why in particular I think jazz songs and kind of Motown songs, that kind of stuff, they work so well because the chords move so much. So for example, the first one that comes to mind for me is a cover I did of Love on Top by Beyonce. And when I listened to that song, I was instantly drawn to the kind of the complex chords going on in the background. So the first thing I'd always start with is, okay, let's get the melody down the way she sings it. So I would get the guitar and I go, I know what the melody is. So now let's figure out those chord voicings. So I'd listen to the track, and she starts off with C major 7, and then this chord, which I think of as a D. It's probably not a D, but in my head it's a D. Okay, so there's an F sharp on the bottom there, and a C, and I don't know, but it's in my head it's a D because that's the way it is on the track. And I'll work out those chords, major 7, and then okay, so I've got those 2 parts. Let's throw in the backbeat. You know, so then we have the bum, 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 bum. It's on the 2 and the 4, and then once I've got kind of the basic arrangement down, that's when I then say, okay, so what is it that makes this song feel the way it does? You know, so for me, in that song, it's the bass in that Love on Top. So instead of just playing like that and kind of vamping it, I decided to get a bit funky with my thumb with the bass. So then I've got. So that's, now we're grooving, now we're really feeling it. And so then I try to keep the same feeling throughout an arrangement the whole time. That's why I generally don't try and go off and take a solo in the middle of an arrangement, because that just kind of loses the groove, you know. Victor Wooten said that as well. He said most bass players are like, why did they stop listening when I take a solo? He said, well, you didn't keep the groove, that's your job. You know, and it's the exact same when you're arranging for the guitar. So when I bring the melody in, it's the same thing. What I did there, when I kind of rolled my fingers, that's stolen from drummers, because drummers do ghost notes, like when they're playing kind of extra little fill-in bits. So I thought, well, the only way I can do that on the guitar is if I kind of mute them and go like that. So then that's another layer of stuff kind of thrown in, and it's the same way I approach my own music, because I don't write any of my music on the guitar. It doesn't start on the guitar, it starts in my head and my voice memos on my phone, and I'll come up with an idea and I'll sing it into the phone, and sometimes it's just in plain English, you know, I want this to sound like Elvis or whatever. So it starts that way. And then, so generally, once I bring it to the guitar, I have a good idea of what the piece is. You know, it might not be totally finished, but I'll have the inner workings, I'll have the bones of it. So it's the same process for my tune Avenue. You know, Avenue wasn't written on the guitar, it was written by me walking down the road saying, walking down the avenue, killing time, whatever. And I went, same thing, add in the bass, bring in the backbeat, bring in the groove, bring in the ghost notes, bring in the melody. You know what I mean? Gorgeous. So that's it's the same thing. For me, composing music and bringing it onto the guitar is the same as arranging it, you know. To give you an idea of something that is maybe more in a thumb-picked vein, I arranged American Patrol by Glenn Miller for the guitar. So when I approached that, I wanted to try and keep those big band voicings. Big band, that's it's a hard thing to say. So what I did was, well, I'll play it for you.
Yes,
You'll
please.
hear what I mean. there you go. And again, I followed the original arrangement. The original arrangement is so good with the horn sections coming in and out, and those big kind of lush chords that they get, like the. I wanted to keep all of those in there, you know. And so I'm always looking for ways to make the guitar kind of not sound like a guitar, if you get me as well. You know, to take something really specific. The arrangement that I did recently of Riverdance.
Right.
As part of that, I wanted to get the melody to stand out a bit more in the arrangement, and kind of if I'd used a traditional guitar approach, picking the guitar, so the melody at the end goes, the famous part goes. The problem is with Irish instruments, such as, like, I was thinking of the uilleann pipes in particular, like the Irish kind of bagpipes, and I was thinking of those in particular, and I thought, well, they don't have any ringing notes, they just have wah, 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 and there's nothing, there's no overtones. So I thought, okay, so if I do this, it's not going to cut through, but if I change it to, everything is muted straight away, and it jumped out. We were sitting in the studio and we said, there it is, there's the feeling, you know? So I'm always conscious of the kind of the detail as well when I'm arranging for the guitar. So that's sort of a crash course in how I approach it.
Since we're kind of talking in the Celtic kind of vein here, can you play us you know, some of the Irish music that you do?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll play a little bit of a tune that I learned when I was younger on the concertina, called the Blackbird. I had a teacher named Micheál O'Reilly, and he's very well respected in Ireland. He's probably one of our most famous Irish traditional musicians. But I would take lessons with him every Monday night. I would drive up, or rather my dad would drive me up about an hour north of where we lived to take concertina lessons from this guy, Micheál O'Reilly. And it's funny because, where's my cap? Up here it is. It's funny because I didn't appreciate until I was a lot older kind of what I was learning. You know what I mean? The heart of what I was learning. When I started playing music and getting more into it and becoming sort of more mature as a player, I started realizing all these little things, and I thought, oh, that's what I learned from Micheál, or oh, that's what I learned from this part of Irish music, etc. So I'll give you a little bit of a tune that I used to play on the concertina called the Blackbird.
Absolutely gorgeous. Now, I know you brought a couple of your CDs that we will give away when we broadcast live, but tell us a little bit about these these projects. Is this the most recent one?
Yeah, it is Marrakesh. So that's from 2017. And my first album, Zephyrs, was recorded in 2015, and that was more or less a collection of everything I'd written up to that point. So it wasn't really planned as an album. It was like, here are 9 tracks that I'm happy with, you know? And then the second one, I had more of an idea of how I wanted it to flow, you know? I mean, the reason I picked Marrakesh as the title of the album is that the city of Marrakesh, as I said at the start, is sort of a melting pot of all these different influences, and I kind of thought it's a good metaphor for what I do, because there's music on that that's influenced by Latin America, there's music on that that's influenced by Chet Atkins and kind of the whole scene here, there's music influenced by Nile Rodgers and Chic and the era of disco, there's stuff there that is influenced by classical music, so there's such a kind of, it's hard to put a genre or a style on it, even though it's solo fingerstyle acoustic guitar. There's so much in there, and I often say to people that the hardest thing about what I do, apart from actually doing the actual playing of the guitar, is trying to explain to people what it is that I do on the guitar, because there's so much in there. And but yeah, I'm due another album. I have another album it'll be out in June of this year, of 2019.
Is it already recorded?
I have the demos recorded, so when I go back to Ireland, I'm going to actually record it. But it's going to be hopefully a step up from the last album. It's a little bit more out there in places, but I'm hoping that it'll get good reaction all the same.
Fantastic. Now, so where do you go from here? I know you're in Nashville now, and eventually going to end back up in Ireland, but where are you from now?
When I get home, I'm in London for a week. I'm working on an album with a singer, a great singer and harp player from Ireland, named Lisa Kenny. She's fantastic. So we were doing a little bit of songwriting together last year in Orlando, and so we're going to be doing a little bit more and kind of getting demos together over the course of next week. And then I'm back in the US in April. I'm going to be at Merlefest on the Friday and Saturday of Merlefest. But of course, I'm going for all 4 days. You know, it's just when the opportunity came up, I said, yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
I've always wanted to go, so it's an honour to be asked to play at it too. And then after Merlefest,
have you not been there before?
No, never been there before. No. So it'll be my first year there, and then from there I go to Wood Songs to Michael Jonathan in Lexington, and then from the bigger picture end of things is that in May I'm doing a tour in Russia for 3 weeks. In July, I'll be back over here for the Chet Atkins convention and for the Irish Fest in Chicago. And then in August and September, I've got a lot of different stuff. There's a couple of different transatlantic flights have to be done. You know, I have festivals here such as Appaloosa, the Milwaukee Irish Fest, Kansas City Irish Fest, Iowa Irish Fest, Michigan Irish Music Fest, and then over in Europe, I've got different festivals in France and Germany and up in Sweden, and so it's going to be a lot of flights.
A lot of travel.
It'll be all worth it for the air miles next year.
There you go. There you go. Well, as we're winding down here, talk a bit about your technique. If there was some exercises that you have found helpful to keep your technique up with the fingerstyle stuff that you do. Now, I notice you do not have nails on your
no nails.
Picking hand there, but you do use a thumb pick occasionally.
Yep, I use a thumb pick, I use a flat pick, sometimes I just use my thumb and my fingers. And the only real way to keep your technique up is to keep playing. There's no, you know, you can do 100 different exercises, but to be honest, you're still just playing. And so even for me warming up before I do a concert or before I came here, I just try to play. I'll never do anything too taxing when I start playing at the start of the day. So I'll play slowly, and my ultimate aim is always to try and get into the zone as quick as I can, to get into a groove. So just before we started filming here, I was improvising something. I don't have a clue what it was, but I liked it. You know, and that's kind of what gets your body into that zone. You know, when I was in college, I studied psychology, and I remember always reading, and a professor there, Alan Carr, had a particular fascination with the subject of positive psychology and a theory called flow. And flow is essentially what we know as being in the zone, where your body, even though you're actually doing more with your hands and it feels good and like feels right to you, your body is under less pressure, you know. So that's the zone I try to get into when I play. If I can get into that zone, everything's going to go fine. So and it's my job before I do a performance or a workshop or recording. That's my job. I need to get into that zone and feel good about my playing, and then it's going to work out. The one thing I think that is particularly salient about the way I play, that many people mightn't realize, is that I hold my right hand a little bit differently than you might expect. So it's a big generalization, but I think of it as Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed, kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. When Chet Atkins played, he played very tune. He played in a very refined way. So all of his pieces, so you have your pinky down, your fingers have a good angle to come cleanly across the string. Jerry Reed's style is totally the opposite, and it's actually the way James Taylor plays the guitar. And because I watched him playing, that's what I picked up on. So you're coming nearly at an angle with your thumb, and you're also plucking the strings upwards as opposed to sideways. So what I usually use to explain this is, I'm sure you're aware of The Claw by Jerry Reed. So if you play The Claw with the Chet Atkins technique, it sounds very clean, but it doesn't really have that biting sound that Jerry got. So you get... But if you use the Jerry Reed hand technique, and I'm not exerting any more pressure with my hand here, you get this. Sounds like you're actually spanking it.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from.
Yeah. Now, if you could give one little piece of advice to the young Shane Hennessy that was trying to figure out how to do this, starting a road, or really any fingerstyle player that's trying to start down on that road. What are some keys that have helped you? Repetition.
You got to keep doing it, and when you feel like you know it, you've started the process of learning it. It's not that you finished it. Most people practice things to try to get them right, but I try to practice things to the point where I can't get them wrong. So, and that's when you start feeling comfortable with the guitar. Picking great songs and good melodies and learning those inside out, and being curious about music is so important. I always had this natural proclivity to listen to all different kinds of music, and I think that it's so easy sometimes to get into the rut of listening to one particular style or one particular artist, and it's good if you want to understand more about a certain style, but on a musical level overall, it's so much better for you to really dip your toe in the water of every little bit of music that you can find. And I often tell people, if they say, "Oh, I don't like jazz," and I kind of say, "Well, why don't you like it? Do you ever think about why you don't like it, as opposed to just saying you don't like it and try and dive into it that way? So, turn it on its head." So, being curious about music and trying to learn it and trying to learn something from each musical style that you come across is definitely a good thing. And other than that, it's just practice. Make sure that, actually, I suppose the number one tip I would give is that make sure that you're not playing too hard, and that's something that I have to remember to do as well. Every time I play live, I have a little piece of paper that I tape to the stage monitor in front of me that says "play lightly," because when you play lightly, the guitar sounds better, you feel better, you play better. And what happens in most instances is, if people are nervous or if people don't have their sound right or whatever, they tend to try and get the sound by playing harder rather than just turning up. So if you have all that tension in your body, you can't move your body. You need to be limber, you need to be relaxed. When I play, there's no tension in my hands, in my arms, in my back, anywhere. I'm nice and loose, and that's the way it always should be. So those are the primary things I say to people. Also, get yourself a girlfriend who can support your lifestyle.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for being part of our world. I'm so glad that we have connected.
Me too.
Would you be so kind as to take us out with a song? What are you going to play for us?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I did, for St. Patrick's Day recently, I did an arrangement of Riverdance, the very famous Irish piece. And the reason I chose to do it is because last year I got to work with the man who wrote Riverdance, a guy named Bill Whelan. Very famous Irish composer and a musical genius of the highest level. And so I always wanted to you know, since I've known of his music, I've always wanted to try and write that way and get that same sort of feeling. And then when the opportunity came up to work with him, jumped at it. It was a phenomenal experience, start to finish. And it was only during the course of that process working with him that I thought, wonder how Riverdance might sound on the guitar. So I gave it a go. It does involve a little bit of technology and a little bit of synchronization down here. So, but I think I got the feeling that I wanted to come out for it. So I'll leave you with that. I'll leave you with Riverdance.
Wonderful.
All right.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shane.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Keep up the great work in your own guitar learning, and we will see you guys next time.